Ladies and gentlemen, let's Red Gaming Sitcom video. Let us discuss the recent controversies surrounding Microsoft, where they have been paying various YouTubers through Machinima $3 per 1,000 views. Now, the basic premise behind this, and the reason that people have been so upset, is, first of all, the YouTubers in question had to include at least 30 seconds of Xbox One gameplay. But the real reason that people are upset is because that they simply did not know that the YouTuber in question was advertising on behalf of a company. So, in effect, it's a subtle form of advertising, and to many, for example, let's say you're a regular viewer of that YouTuber, let's say you're a regular viewer of that website, it doesn't, for this purpose it doesn't matter, and you trust their opinion. You've been watching them for 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and you think, wow, this guy's really cool. He's basically, you're gonna feel like he's broken your trust, and it's very difficult, to be honest, to not feel like that. And so obviously this has been blowing up right now, pretty much in Microsoft's face, and there are several things I want to discuss with you guys. This is an absolutely ginormous topic, and I probably would going to think of more stuff to think of later to say on this, but here I just want to kind of touch on some stuff right now. So, the first thing to say is that in terms of advertising on YouTube, obviously traditionally we get banner ads or pre-roll ads or whatever, and depending on how your contract works, whether it's through, say, a network partner or whether it's through YouTube directly, you're going to get paid in different ways. It might either be CPM, in other words, cost per 1,000 impressions, or it could be a CPC. So, in other words, someone clicks, and let's say your click is worth 10 cents on the ad, then, depending on your contract, how much you've negotiated, you will get a certain percentage of that. Pretty simple. The premise here, however, is completely different. And, I can't control, for example, what ads show at the start of my video, or at the banner, or whatever. I don't have a clue. For all I know, it could have been showing you the latest commercial for the latest Ferrari car, or it could have been showing you a commercial for a hand lotion. It just doesn't, I just don't have a clue. I have no control over that. But companies are starting to realize that this YouTube thing is just not going to be going away. The bottom line is you get huge YouTube celebrities, that have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of subscribers who are getting, that amount of views, maybe like 1 million, 2 million video views a day. And ultimately, if they endorse a product, whether it's subtly or whether it's, not so subtly, then you're going to potentially have a lot of different people who are going to be buying that product. That's just really how it is. Okay, so now we've gotten that pretty simple part out of the way, let's go into slightly more detail. So, I just want to go on record and say that we've never done that. We've never taken cash, we've never taken any bribes or anything else for reviews, or however, if I like a game, I'll be honest, and for the most part for our reviews, we don't give scores or anything like that. You can, I try to explain what I think of the game, I try to explain what, is going on, the basic premise, and I'll show you guys a good snippet of gameplay. And that's one of the reasons typically that we do kind of like a first impressions or like a good gameplay chunk, so that you guys can get an idea, does this look good? Do the graphics suck? Are there tons of glitches? For example, if you see a glitch within 30 minutes of gameplay and it's pretty groundbreaking, it's probably a good indication that the game isn't really released in that great of a state to begin with, right? And I think that's a pretty fair way to do it. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll do a more in-depth review depending on the length of it. For example, something like the Banner Saga, it's not really fair to do a first impressions on because it's pretty damn huge. And so the best way I could do that was to, play the game for a good amount of time, get some footage, and then put together something, as well as give you guys some like raw unedited gameplay footage. So, in some cases, as someone who does reviews, you'll contact a company, whoever that might be, and you'll say to them, "Hi, by the way, we're interested in reviewing your game. Would you mind awfully if we did that? Maybe you can give us a CD, a key." And they'll sometimes give you like that along with press access or whatever, and that's pretty much where the storyline usually ends. They'll just say to you, "We'd love for you to review our game," particularly if they're confident in the game, may I add. If they're confident in the game, why wouldn't they want to give someone a key who is most likely going to like the game? If it's a good game, you're going to be pretty confident someone's going to like it at least. And, that's pretty much all there is to it. In some cases, they'll say, do you mind if you add a link in your description which points them towards the Steam store so they can buy it? Or, do you mind putting a link in the description which takes them to our official page? And, that's fair enough. I don't really see anything underhanded or anything sneaky about that, and then I'll just give my opinion of the game. That's not to say that the reviews don't always come with certain conditions and criteria. Sometimes, for example, they'll say, well, you can't put any footage up whatsoever until a specific time and date, and they'll be pretty stringent about that. Other times, they'll say, well, in the case of, for example, Frictional, they had a more relaxed policy. They told us straight, well, you can put some footage up, but you can only put up to 30 minutes up before, and I can't remember what the dates was now, but I think it was like a week before or whatever, you could put up to 30 minutes, but no more than that. So it was only the first 30 minutes of the game, and that's it. You can't be basically doing a Let's Play a week before, which I don't blame them, considering it's a story-orientated game. That's all fine. So now I've gotten that out of the way, let's discuss earnings for a moment. So first things first, we discussed earlier about the basics of advertising, although I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with that anyway. But instead, let's touch on the $3 per 1,000 views. So the basic premise is that, honestly speaking, from Microsoft's perspective, it's very cheap advertising. It really is. It's quite cheap, and I say that as someone who handles the budgets quite often for the company I work for, which has nothing to do with gaming, may I add. I handle a lot of the Google advertising, a lot of the CPC on that, and I've got to tell you, if we, it would probably cost us a lot more than that for 1,000 impressions. It most likely would. In other words, Microsoft are getting a really good deal here. Not that I have any problem with that, yeah? That's neither here or there. So I'm not saying like, the poor YouTubers got ripped off. I'm just saying that it's a pretty good form in terms of, from their perspective of cheap, good return, good ROI, so good return on investment. Because not only are they doing like this speculative campaign, because sure they can tell what the click-through rate, what the CTR is, for example, of like an advert that they place on a particular website, or they can tell what the best keywords are for their campaigns and whatever else. They can tell that, but at the same time, they can't then say, "Oh, you know what? That advert made someone like that game." But it's a lot more likely, however, that if someone on YouTube whose personality you trust says that that's a good game, then you're more likely you're more likely to watch it, or at least check it out. You might not necessarily buy it, but you'll at least rent it, or you'll do some research on it before, rather than just dismissing it. And getting back to a fairly obvious point, in certain points of the year, costs vary for advertising. So, for example, January could be a very unlucrative month for you as a YouTuber, because everyone blows their budgets in Christmas. But in addition to that, from the perspective of companies, it becomes a lot more expensive, and you've also got that much more competition. So these like more subtle advertising methods, I suppose you could call them somewhat insidious, if you will. And this is the thing. It's like on RGT, I'm pretty open with you guys. I think. I mean, for most parts, like videos like this, I've been accused of being a bit too serious. A little bit calm, a little bit not downbeat, but very kind of straight. Because I think sometimes stuff like this, it's better to be serious. On the other hand, on Let's Plays, you know me, I just let rip. I'm like, shit! As something's trying to chop my head off, or God help you if you've been watching our Trying Let's Play. You get the idea. See, that's subtle marketing right there. I'm just kidding, guys. But on a serious note, that's I have, I think, a reasonably good relationship with viewers, and I'm trying to get used to it. I really am. It still freaks me out a little bit. Like, some of you guys have gave me friend requests on YouTube, on Facebook. It'd be very interesting if you gave me friend requests on YouTube. I was going to say that's a new feature. Sometimes I get friend requests or random messages or saying, I really I really love that stuff. And at the end of the day, I know a fair amount about tech. I'm still learning some stuff. I still am pretty crappy when it comes to Linux. I'm trying to learn that, and no one's perfect. But at the end of the day, I try to have what I'd consider a fairly healthy relationship with you all. I am not gonna, act like you're all my best buddies in the world, because I don't necessarily think that's a healthy relationship. On the other hand, I'll, respect you all. I'll respect your opinion. If you say, dude, could you cover this game, or could you, maybe change your format a little bit, or your audio's maybe not that clear, or whatever, or just generally speaking, I'll have a laugh and I'll joke with viewers, because that, I think, is not only professional and it serves me in terms of a content creator, but it also is like the decent human thing to do. And I'll just be totally honest, I'm not gonna, is I'm obviously working a job as well, and so outside of this whole YouTube thing, and so for me personally, I need to enjoy this. If I'm reviewing a game or and interacting with you guys, and I don't usually read comments, as you all know. I mean, sometimes I rarely make the odd comment on RGTs, through the comment section. That's why I usually say Facebook, because it's not to drive you guys necessarily to the Facebook. It's simply because it's just easier for me, rather than trying to keep up with the amount of videos we produce. It's just easier for me to answer your questions on there. The bottom line is, people now have their bullshit sensors at their absolute maximum. They're going to be able to detect bullshit from the range of the Andromeda galaxy at this point. But the reality is, these subtle forms of advertising aren't going to be going anywhere. They really aren't. And as I said, I don't necessarily have any problems with endorsement. I don't really, if I like, for example, a certain celebrity, and I'm talking about the movie type of celebrity, and they say, and it's fairly obvious sometimes that they'll advertise, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a really classic example of that, and he uses his personality, for example, right now to start pushing his own bodybuilding supplements. As some of you may know, I'm into bodybuilding and, to the gym and stuff like that. It's Ronnie Coleman. Quite a lot of athletes do that. And I don't have a problem with it. It's obvious that they are advertising to me. Unless I'm completely silly, it's fairly obvious that if someone's posing with their shaker bottle, then, that says just for example, Jay Cutler Elite Series. I'm not advertising for him, guys, I promise. I'm just giving an example. If it says Jay Cutler Elite Series and it's he's posing with it, I could bloody well know that he's advertising his product. And the same thing for all the other various bits and pieces. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. I think everyone understands, but I think it becomes a bit unscrupulous if I'm really saying, yeah, I love this game, or, this is a really good game, and, then you start to wonder, just how honest are you being? You know, do you really like, just for example, do you really like this film? Do you really like this, you know, this game that you're playing, or are you just saying it because, you know, you're being basically paid? And you know, while we are focused a lot on YouTube, you've got to remember, and I'm not defending YouTubers or anything like that. I'm just saying, I think it's important to remember that while, yes, sure, YouTubers are an issue, larger websites have been accused of this as well. You know, I won't name names because I think that's actually unfair because I don't really know the status of just how many people, you know, have left those websites. But I'll let you Google around, and I think you'll quickly find that a lot of the big names have been accused of this in cases of where they've, for example, had, you know, the back page banner advertisements that you'll have on YouTube, sorry, on websites, or the pre-roll ads or whatever. In some cases, that's happened, and then the reviewer has given the game a shitty score. For example, a 6 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 or whatever. And then that reviewer has gotten in trouble. He's basically gotten his bottom spanked by the executive editor of that magazine or of that website, and said, you know, these guys have just paid us a bunch of money. What are you doing? You can't do that. And in some cases, you know, a lot of money can change hands. It really can. It's it, it's getting a slippery slope, and I think for many people, that's why they're starting to look at YouTubers. That's why they're starting to trust YouTubers' opinions or the opinions of some random dude on a blog, because it's more likely, to be honest, it's more likely to represent an honest slice of gameplay. Of course, there have been instances, and I've mentioned this before, of companies really starting to abuse, if you will, the YouTube copyright system. I'm not going to name names, but Totalbiscuit, he's obviously had a pretty famous incident where basically he did a review of a game, and he was given complete permission to monetize the review. He was given a review key, and then he didn't like the game. Simple as that. There was not much else to say. He didn't like it, gave it a bad review, if you will, and then they gave him a copyright strike because of that, and copyright strike's obviously not very good for your channel. And so, anyway, he fought it tooth and nail, and rightfully it got removed. But that's an example, of course, of bad advertising. Anyway, guys, there really is a hell of a lot we could say about this. I mean, I've literally just scraped the surface. I could make like an hour long opinion on this. I really could. And there are so many different perspectives. The perspective of like companies, the perspective of YouTubers, the perspective of us as viewers. And all I'm going to say to you is just, you know, make your own decisions as much as possible when it comes to products. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with product endorsements, providing it's clear to everyone that you are being asked to do this and it's not compromising your integrity. That's the big one. I mean, if a company, let's just call them Fiendly Games. I have no idea if that's a real company. Hopefully not, but let's just make one up. Let's say Fiendly Games approaches me and says, hey, we'll give you a lot of money to give our game a good review. And then I played that game, and that game sucks. Like, it has major problems. I'm not being honest with you if I say, yeah, this is a really great game. great game, guys. I can't even say the bloody words. You know, it's a really great game. You should definitely buy this. Meanwhile, I'm like editing the bloody thing together because he keeps crashing and hard locking my system. That's been completely disingenuous. It's completely and utterly destroying my journalistic, even though I don't really classify myself as a journalist, but I couldn't really think of another word. It's really compromising my integrity. And I don't think that's fair on viewers, because ultimately, you come to me, I would assume, with a certain level of trust in mind. You don't really expect me to basically screw you over by giving you shitty advice. And for the most part, I think I give fairly good advice. I'll give honest advice. You might not like it all the time, but I'll give my honest opinion, and that's pretty much what you'd expect. On the other hand, if a company, let's call them Fiendly Games once more time, says, hey, you know what, we noticed this guy, I was referring to myself, is getting a lot of views, and his audience is most likely what would buy our title. What we're going to do, we're going to, fly him down, or ask if he wants to come down to the office, or let's say, for example, they're in London, and say, you know what, come down for an interview, or conduct an interview over Skype, or whatever, then fine. I don't have any problem with that. Conduct an interview, try out some gameplay footage, show you guys it. I don't really think that that's being non-honest, providing I say, Fiendly Games invited me down to the office, and this is me playing the beta, and I'm just totally honest about all the circumstances. I don't think there's a problem with that. The same like there was a massive uproar a while ago because journalists were given free Xbox Ones or free PlayStation 4s at various launch events, and people were really pissed at that. And I can somewhat understand the public being pissed because there's like all these journalists tweeting their images of their PlayStation 4 and at this massive press event. And it can somewhat seem like some of your integrity is gone. But you've got to remember, from the perspective of a lot of the journalists, sure, they're enjoying it and stuff, but I honestly believe a lot of them, they just see the damn console as like a tool. For example, my PlayStation 4 that I wasn't given, I just want to clarify, I had to buy it for my own money. But I like the console, I do. But at the end of the day, when I'm doing reviews and stuff for you guys, I'm not thinking, wow, this PlayStation 4 is amazing. I think, well, okay, gotta load the game up and set up all the recording equipment and stuff. In other words, I just use it as a tool for the trade. And I think that's how I think that's the professional way. So, anyway, I'm kind of going on a rant now. I'm going on a massive rant, aren't I? So I want to clarify just and say, well, just be vigilant. This type of advertising isn't just on YouTube, it's also going to be on Machinima. I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of that anyway. I'm sorry, Machinima. It's also going to be part of Twitch, it's going to be part of websites, it's going to become just prevalent. But I think companies like Microsoft will learn from this. I honestly think they will. I think for the most part they are trying to just understand how to use this, and I think they made a huge misstep. I think it's cost them dearly, and I think it's done the opposite. Ironically enough, they were doing this for positive PR. They were doing this for great PR. And in reality, it's turned out to give them pretty negative PR because people are now pissed, and people are now pissed at the YouTubers who were caught in this, I don't like to use the word, but still, scandal. Oh well. Well, that's the fun of the gaming and tech industry, right? Anyway, I'm going to get going because I still have an absolute bucket load of stuff to record. And that's just how we roll. So anyway, on a serious note, guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this, because I have a feeling it's not going to be going anywhere soon. Take care anyway, and bye for now. gentlemen, before we get into the video, let us discuss recent leaked benchmarks of NVIDIA's GTX 750 Ti, also known of course as the first Maxwell GPU. Now I've done this as an article as well, in which